Hey everybody, and welcome back. Pardon me. Alright, well, as you can see, I've got my stable behind me again, and this is down because I was doing something else on the lift table. I'm quite pleased with the way this is coming along. Okay, so before we get to what we're going to do this week, I actually do have a couple of things to tell you. First of all, found the book. This is Don Morley's classic British trials bikes, the 4-strokes. So I was able to look up a couple of things, and while I was looking it up, something else happened, which I was able to look up in here. And it's going to be a small, well, it might not be so small, repair project which we will get to when we finish this, or perhaps while I'm painting this or something like that. We had some warm days, weirdly, and the snow we had melted and the ground dried out a little bit while I was away for Thanksgiving, which was fun. Far too much food, obscene amounts of food. I had a bit of potato and turkey and stuffing, and that was basically it. Okay, so I took the standard Enfield out for a ride, and second section, which is upper rocky gully, you sort of climb out at the end and turn right. So as I did the climb out, put a little bit of power on to get out, sounded like the chain was jumping the sprockets. So I stopped, switched it off, looked, nope, chain looked fine. I thought maybe the new tension that I'd made had jumped off or something like that. Everything seemed fine, so I got back on, started it up, and as soon as I moved off, clonk, crunch, grind, nasty noises. So I stopped it again, got off and looked, and when I went to roll it backwards, it wouldn't roll backwards. So I sort of jiggled it backwards and forwards a little bit, and then there was a sort of crunch crunch, and it went backwards and forwards. So I thought, oh, okay, turned it round, managed to coast a fair way back because I was up the hill a little bit, and then I started it up and rode it back to the garage just very, very steadily, and it was making noises all the way. So I thought, okay, something to look at. And then I was looking in this for other details of things, and Don Morley mentions how sort of poor the operation of the Albion gearbox is, but how, even though it's rugged, I guess a common thing with them, because it was about the only thing he mentioned, was that when the main shaft bearing goes, the main shaft drops just a little bit and it will break teeth off the gears. So we've got to have a look in the gearbox. Now I have another Pashley gearbox which I was just going to put together and sell. So depending on what I find inside, I might either just use the internals in that back into this, or, because I think I've got to check the part numbers, but I think the main shaft and lay shaft, you know, the splines on it and everything are the same. So I might just put it together as a standard 4-speed box like this one's got, with the 2 lower range gears which I have bought for this from Hitchcock's. So okay, that's those things. Now the other thing is our mystery brake. And a lot of comments, several people, in fact I even wrote them down, so I would so regular contributors here. Stephen Deacon, thank you by the way for all of these comments, thought it was a lip bender. Mike Moore said it was a bar folder, but then from Greybeard, who's a regular watcher, he said it was a bar folder as well, but he also mentioned the name. He said it was Peck, Stowe and Wilcox, which became Petco, and it's for doing the seams on HVAC boxes and what have you, which is interesting because Steam Shop was round the other day just before he heads off to Florida, and he was looking at it and he said it looks as if it would make the little lips on stovepipes. I mean, we don't really have these in the UK, but like our wood stove, the pipes you buy, they're sheet and the edges are sort of crimped together, but you can open them up and it's a slightly complicated double crimped edge that locks over itself. So it would appear that that's what it is. It was mentioned, and I didn't write that name down, and Steam Shop mentioned it, that I could go to Google Patents and put in the date, because it has the day and everything on there, and it will show me all the patents that were registered that day. So I would find out. But it seems to me, because I know the lady said her dad had a lot of Petco stuff, so it would seem that this bar folder from Petco is the right item. So there we go. One thing that Greybeard had mentioned was, well, obviously you can still buy these things. They're very expensive apparently. The thing that got me about it and Steam Shop was it was so short. Because I think standard steam, even the ordinary pipes for stoves are like 3 feet long, the sections come in, and that thing's barely 2 foot. So whatever it's for, I can make it into a nice break for doing lightweight stuff, which is what I wanted it for. Okay, so that's that sorted. Right, so let me put this back up on the lift, and then as I mentioned, front mudguard stays, head steady thing here, chain tensioner we've got to look at, and it suddenly struck me, chain guard as well. So if we have time to get onto them and the sprocket hasn't arrived, I've got a couple of old 520 sprockets, so what I might do is just cut a piece off that I can put a clamp on, so that it's the same. It's 6 inches for a 62 sprocket 520. I can have it the right diameter and just lay some chain on that and over the sprocket on the gearbox, and we can work things out. Alright, so let me get stuck in. Right then, stage 1. I put some foam. It's that thick under there, just about yay wide, about as wide as the top 3 treads, to give me a gap. Now, this mudguard's a little bit long for my complete liking, but the thing is, it's got rolled ends at both ends, and I decided, for the sake of cutting, you know, a couple of inches off, I think we're all right like that. Okay, so now we're going to do a couple of measurements. Were they 20? Did I put a 21-inch rim on the B50? Hold on, let me go and look. I know you're thinking, of course you did, it's a trial spike wheel, it's the same wheel. Alright, so I can take some measurements off that, because the mudguard's about the same. So we'll get the pipe bender dies out, the tube bender I should say. By the way, I'm sure nearly everybody knows this, but just in case you wonder what the difference between the measurements of pipe and tube are, if you get a piece of 1.5 inch tube, that's the outside diameter. If you get a piece of 1.5 inch pipe, that's the inside diameter. Okay, so I've got to look, see if I've got some 5mm. I think they were 5mm bolts as well. So we're going to go from there to there and there to there, just to sit. Actually, on that bike, because the mudguard I think is a bit shorter, we went from there to there. We might come out a little bit further this time, but we'll get the tube bender dies out for the 1/2 inch tube. Right, so here we go again. Let's see how much of a mess we can make of this one. Right, this die gives me, on the inside of the tube, a diameter of 4 inches, right? It's a 2 1/4 radius, but that is to the center line of the tube. So this being 1/2 inch, that means the radius to the inside would be 2 inches, and it's a 4 inch mudguard, so that would be right. But of course the forks are slightly further apart. We need to be 6 1/4 inches. So if we bent this 180 degrees, the ends would be 4 inches apart. We don't want that. This is where we have to get clever, you see, because we've got to bend it, and then we've also got to bend away from the bend a little bit there, because if we could go 4 inches, that would be right. They would be parallel to each other. but we're not, we're going like that. So the ends are going to have to be bent in a bit. We're going to flatten the ends in our little jig as before. Alright, now this die isn't big enough to have holes in. I don't know how you're supposed to do it, but anyway, here goes. Right, that was neither something nor nothing, was it? That must be about, it goes like that. Well, hold on. Right, moved that out of the way and then the welder was in the road. This is going to be a slow one. See, that presses on the... How the hell did I do this last time? That presses on the tube. I don't want to squash the tube, do I? That'll be alright. God, this must be boring. Although I know when I say that, people say, no, no, we like watching it all. So, I must have done something different last time. What the hell did I do? Because I can't get to the next hole. I'm going to have to switch you off while I think about this. I might even have to go back and look at an old video. I remember what I did. I didn't use the ratcheting part. Put that pin in there and then I used a piece of bar in here. I think it works particularly well. It does work. It doesn't look as if it's going long enough. Oh, now I've taken my tape away. Right, so we've got to be round about 6 3/4. That's 8, so we've got to go a bit more. I think I might need this longer, but I've just checked the one at the back, because it's on the back of the fork, is shorter, so I can always use this for the back. That should be about it. Let's take it off and go and have a look. So, as per usual, nothing goes right. I remember Pratt, I don't know if you remember, but I had a real Pratt on with these. So, this is a 4-inch mudguard. I just checked the inner diameter. I've put these on the die that it's bent round. So that's set or what the inside of this would be if I went 180 degrees. Right? It's spot on the same. But when I put that on, can you see that? Yeah, just about. Let me move you around. I should edit this bit out, but I won't. There. See the big gap? Now the gap goes down as it comes at an angle. If I had it at that angle, that would work. But I don't. It's got to be at that angle. So what I've got to do is now, hopefully, pull these out. And I say hopefully because what I want, of course, is for them to open out evenly. "10" though does seem to be a good length. Actually, it might be a little bit much, but I can shorten that. So let me cut this piece so that I don't have a bit hanging over the end and start to finagle this. Heating's just come on, so you'll have to excuse that. Alright, so I've pulled this out. And that, see, is about as good as I'm going to get it. And the arms are pointed at the mountains. But, hang on. Let me drop you down a little bit so you can see that. Okay. So there's the arm, that's the angle it's going to be at, for the arms to be at those mountains. And you can see it's fairly decent, but you can also see that now we're about an inch out on either side. So this one and the one on the other side, the arms are going to have to be bent in. So we'll decide on an exact point the same, put them in the thing and try and bend them in a bit. Just as a bit of a guide when I do the next one, I've put this back in on its marks and it goes to 136 degrees. So I'll put a little, because my memory is atrocious, that doesn't show up, but I'll put a little note on there, say 136. Right, I did a little drawing on the top of the welding table here, and I think if I bring these in about 15 degrees each, should be close. So I've got marks equidistant from there, so that I know if I put it up to the stop there, that's right. I've got this horizontal, so all things being equal, which they never are, if I take this round to 15 degrees and then swap over and do the other side, we should be somewhere close. At least it's a good starting point. Bounce back as usual. Right, that's 15, so I need to take it to nearly 20. Goes in there. Goes in there like thusly. Up to its mark. And that up a bit. Good. All right, let's go and try this. Just had a thought, I can check this. When this is squished up, it's going to be in a bit at each side. I said 6 1/4 before, it's actually 6 3/4. I did get it right the second time. So that to there, like 6 3/4. This could be pretty good. Right then, let's see what we've got. Now, as I say, I think these are a little bit long, but wow. Wow. See, it's sitting on the top of that, so when that's thinned down, I can pull them in a little bit. I think I would have liked to have that bend further up here. I don't know if I could get it in. That looks a little strange. See, the trouble is, when you bend it, you can't really unbend it. I wonder if I use that for the back, would it look less strange? Can you see the back? When I say the back, I mean the back half of the mudguard, yes, just. That would look less strange because I've got to cut a good couple of inches off there. So let's use this one for the back. Still don't particularly like the look of it, but I'm not going to go through all this bending again. It's only a bleeding mudguard stay. So let's find a measuring stick. See how far off the back of the mudguard I am and cut the appropriate amount off those ends. Right, well, I've cut these. So that's going to be like that. Alright. That looks fine, I think. Actually, do I want to have it up here? You know, I'm thinking about there. Anyway, time for scran. So let me think about that, and then when we come back, we'll trap the ends with our little doodad. So I've set up a little rig here to take away just slightly some of the guesswork. So this is the squishing part, you may remember. This maintains the roundness, puts a little shape to it, and that's the flattening part. But as I found last time, if you try to do it cold, it splits the tube. So we're going to heat it up. So I've got my torch set up on a stand here, but the way I've set it up is so that this here is going to keep this horizontal. Last time I messed around with it. Okay, so that will go in there. See, I don't want this to cool down. So before I was playing around trying to get things done. So everything's clamped up now. I get this hot, push it in there, pull on the thing, and everything's being kept nice and straight so that when I've done them, the flats on the ends, the flat on there and the flat on there, will be parallel with each other. Or at least that's the plan. I could do with having a little handle on that to lift it up. That's the next thing to weld on there. Alright, so let me turn you off while I get myself sorted. should have worked. There we go. Hasn't split. Got the nice rounded end to it. Okay. I'll do the other one. Right, so that's got both ends flattened, and as you can see they're parallel. Well, near enough. I've had to pull this in a little bit. Nothing ever works the way it should do. But they go inside there, just long enough. As normal with my stuff, it's not exactly spot on. Come on, Dick, how do you do things that always come out perfectly? Now I've got a gap again. Shoot. Oh, I realised why the 4-inch curve there doesn't fit this 4-inch curve. That 4-inch diameter is the diameter of a semicircle. In other words, 4 inches all the way around. This is not a semicircle, it's only a segment of a circle. So this curve here might be a circle that's, I don't know, 8 inches diameter. So, you know, there you go. That's why I'm not comparing apples to apples, if you like. This isn't part of an 8-inch, well, a 4-inch circle. This might be a 6-inch circle. See what I mean? Anyway, again, God, it's come out near enough. By the time I got my bracket on the back there, that will be all right. And I think that going up, yeah. Oh, why does nothing ever work out right? Being one of those days. That's about parallel with the forks. That's 8 inches, so yeah, it'll be all right there, I think. I can always see, the more I move it up, further out it gets there. Oh, that's not bad. You know what I should do really is make straight ones and bolt them just there. That would be so much easier, wouldn't it? A flat on each end, just more or less straight with just the ends bent. Well, this end bent slightly. Why didn't I make it like that? Anyway, I didn't, so let's see, we'll maybe put that in. There, like that. Anyway, let me round these ends off and drill a couple of holes. We'll see what it looks like when it's bolted on. Well, it would appear that I have inadvertently heat treated this because I can't get a drill to touch it. Sharpened the drill, tried it on another piece of, actually it's 4140, drilled through it fine, will not touch this. So I'll have to look into the temperatures to anneal this, if I can. Bugger. Right, well, I went through all the drill bits I had, because when I go to auctions and stuff I sometimes pick up little bunches, and I found a silvery looking one that I thought might be carbide, and I drilled a hole with it. I thought, great, won't touch this side. I have a drill sharpening thing because my drill sharpening is rubbish. Sharpened it to 135 degrees, which it recommended for harder metals, and look, just will not touch it. So I guess I'm going to have to buy We should really have some, I suppose. Some carbide bits and see if that'll do it. Go from there. So in the meantime, I suppose we can have a look at this head steady. So I spoke to my machinist friend Dick, who also knows a lot about heat treating metals, and I was telling him about this. This isn't 4140 or whatever, because, you know, obviously that's a bit expensive just for mudguard stays. So he told me to heat it up till it was red, and he said do it in subdued lighting so that, you know, I saw the redness coming up, and then cool it in either sand or, he said, ash from a coal fire was good. Just so happened George burns coal, so I went over and got a bucket of ash, heated it up till it was red, sort of in the dark, put it in the ash and let it cool down there. Bugger me, I was able to drill a hole in. So there is the first one done. All right, and I think, hang on, I'm going to cut that. I'm going to cut it here. That's just too long. It looks nasty. I think so. Well, we can leave that till the last minute. I'll make my bracket and we can leave that till, as I say, till the very last minute. But anyway, that's on there. Everything lines up. I don't have a big gap, which is very good. In fact, it's almost touching there. So next thing for me to do, I'm going to do one at a time completed, is to make a little tab to go on there. We'll do one tab in the middle, same as we did before. So let me go and cut a bit of flat. Right, so there's the little tab bronzed on. So let me put this on. I've drilled the mudguard. Let's see what it looks like when it's bolted on. So there's that one on. I've used a nice little acorn nut with a flat sort of bolt on the inside, so we don't have anything sticking out, catching mud and things. That doesn't look too bad. This looks terrible. I'm going to cut that off. And no, about there, I think. Maybe fractionally longer. But that looks pretty good. And that's still on the foam there. I've taken the foam out the back. Right, that's good. So, let's bend one of these up, 136 degrees, and then 15 each. 10 inches long, I think, here. Can't remember. Anyway, I will measure it. Right, so there's the front one on. I've got to get some short bolts. You may notice that and that are a different colour. For some reason, I don't know why, because it's an expensive way to do it. I think I mentioned this earlier. That is 4140. Because when I opened the new pack of 1/2 inch tube, it was silvery and it was a lot easier to bend. But when I got it done, I've made them too short. So actually this is something I might do in future. So I made up 2 pieces, trapped the ends, and then just fitted it. I've just got a little sleeve inside there. So that's all on and done. And oh, I had a little play around with sort of trial and error with a pair of compasses. And this 4 inch here is 3/4 of an inch rise. So I pratted around, and this arc here is part of a 6 inch diameter circle, near enough. I might make another one for the back because I really don't like that bend in there, but for now everything is good. So that's got them done. Alright, and that's the end of the day, because again, it's amazing how long these things take me to do. It all looks near as damn it symmetrical and centered and what have you. Alright, see you later. Before I forget, here's the picture to show you the oil filter removal. This is out of Don Morley's book. Okay, so there's the oil filter, right? And you can see on this one, notice the little holes drilled everywhere. God knows how much weight that saved. But if you look at Sammy Miller's bike as well, his aerial's 4 holes. You see the line there? That's where it's cut off. Because you can see the bottom of the engine, right, which you can't see here. There's that screw-in filter that I showed you, one there and one back here. So I'm not quite sure how they've cut it off, because in here, you can't see, there's a little screw in the bottom, because there is a drill way. Goes up there. There's one drill way there, which is, there's a hole here. I mean, they've had to drill it that way for manufacturing. So this end is blanked off. So there's a hole just here, horizontally, into the end there. Filters are a round one, so the oil goes, I think, into the centre and then out through the filter element to fill the chamber. So there's a hole there, which goes up here. It goes, I think this is the delivery side, and then here there's a hole inside which is drilled at an angle and comes out here to feed the big end. So that's obviously the delivery side. Then back here there are drill ways up here to feed the rocker feed. So I'm not exactly sure how. As I say, they've cut this off just below there. Now whether it's just being cut off and a plate welded on, and we've still got the drill way showing, I don't know. I'm loath to start sawing things off. I've got to look at it even more, but I've got to find out exactly what's happening here. I seem to remember doing a whole section on this oil system with a nice diagram when I built the Enfield, so let me pull that out and refresh my memory. But anyway, that's what we've got to do if we decide to do it. We cut it off right there. Handy mod, but depends on how much work it is as to whether I'll do it or not. Okay, let's press on. Alright, just thought I'd show you, if you're wondering who Don Morley is, or was. I think he died not so long ago. I might be wrong, so let's not write him an obituary yet. But there he is on an aerial. Real trials, look. Good old 4-stroke single. Bell staff. Has he got wellies on? I think he's got wellies on. No helmet and a fag in his mouth. Alright. Okay, let's do some work. Right, well, so head steady. Now, I'm calling it a head steady, but in truth, I don't think it is in the normal sense of a head steady. The head steady is normally there to sort of stop the vibrations, because the engine's all mounted at the bottom and the engine's shaking a little bit, whichever engine it is. So you've got this weight up here that can oscillate. So generally, it's, you know, it's bolted onto the top, you know, like the BSA one is on these 2 bolts here and goes up there, and the Triumph one is on 2 bolts here and goes up there, and it's to stop it doing that. And it's always sort of flat, made out of flat plate somehow, with generally 3 mounting points so that it can't do anything like this. Wait for the lorry. This one bolts to there, and on the standard frame it comes back to here, and it's almost like a turnbuckle. It's basically just a threaded thing with eyes on the end. So I don't think it would stop any vibration whatsoever. What I think it's for is because of the whole way this engine's mounted. We know it's bolted in underneath at the back, mostly under the gearbox. There is one bolt that bolts the engine, but then at the front, of course, we have a single bolt. So I think that's for more like a torque stay, like a brake torque arm, so that when the engine's running and it's trying to turn, it's not pivoting on the back end of the engine, because it doesn't have a sort of mounting midway. It's all towards the back. Towards the back. I've got a feeling my hand keeps going out of view here. It's all towards the back. So it could well have a tendency to do that. So how are we going to do this? I was thinking of making a triangular plate like that. But the more you come up here, the sort of, well, if it's triangular, it'll be fine. But if that was just bolted straight to there, then again, it could do that. but if it's triangular plate it won't, so we're alright. But the other thing is, the tank's going to be down here, and there, you see, is, for want of a better term, the choke, the fuel enrichment for cold starts. So what I'm going to have to do with that, I don't know if that screws off or whether it's sort of fastened into the, just had to change a battery. So I'm going to have to sort of make like a U piece that goes down here, so I can reach down and push it up and down. I don't see, it's a pity, you see, it isn't one of those flick ones. I could get to that, but I'm not going to be able to put me, well, I could push it up, but pulling it down would be difficult. So we've got to think of some way to make that work. So on this one, this tank, as I say, I'm not going to use the rubber mounting mechanism that I used on the other one, which is sort of the equivalent of being, now let me show you. Hang on, I'm going to swivel you around. There you go. If you remember, it was 2 rubbers on here, one on each side, and then the tank had pieces inside that pushed onto there. Well, to get a decent bit of rubber, that adds another inch to the thickness of this. So this time I'm going to do it a la sort of Norton. I'm going to have a plate on here, and the bottom of the tank is going to have a couple of things that go into the plate with some rubber mounts. So I want to keep the tunnel narrow. It'll come down a bit, but it doesn't have to be so wide here. So that means we can make the tank smaller in total width, because we're going to have more volume, as we're not got a big tunnel underneath. So anyway, I'm waffling on. Let's swing back round here. A lot of talking this week, isn't there? So the reason I was telling that was, I don't want to sort of drill through and put tubes in here, because that'll give me a bolt head on one side and a nut on the other side. I'm trying to keep that as slim as possible. So we'll mount it underneath. Also, of course, we've got to make sure we've got room there. So there and there. I don't think I could do it a la Enfield, or could I? Yeah, I suppose I could, look. There's plenty of room for the choke thing behind there. It's on this side on the Enfield. And then I just have to put one mounting on the back here and make a stay. As I say, it's right back there on the standard Enfield. Okay, let me give that some thought. So I've been giving this some thought. I thought about putting flat bars in. I thought about putting a thing like the Enfield one. But I decided I wanted to try and incorporate this, because if I just make up a U thing to push up and down, it's going to flex and all sorts of things. So I thought I needed to go in a guide. So I decided I would make a plate here, mounted at 2 points up there, so it's triangle. So that's the way it should be. Actually, I thought that was a 3/8 hole, but it isn't. It's only 5/16. So that's roughly how it's going to be. As you can see, it actually needs to be a little bit taller. Now then, you're thinking, what is that? So how am I going to move this? I thought about all sorts of clever milling to make a thing. I decided I need something. I might have told you this, because I've jumped backwards and forwards with the front mudguard says. I wanted to make a sort of finger thing, but I didn't want it to be too thick and clunky, and I wanted it to clip on there. And I suddenly thought, hey, what about those things you put on to stick bolts in? I've used these in the past and I knew I had a couple. So I got one of those, cut a slot in it, and that actually clips on there like fussily, right? Put a rod in that, right? Now then, what we'll do is, thinking
I can just about fit a nut inside there. So this rod can thread into that. And because the rod can thread into that, the rod can go through and little sleeve. And the little sleeve can be fastened onto the back of that. Right? I mean, I don't have to go too low, it doesn't have to be too long. But now if that's in there like that, like thus, probably go on this side of it. No, it'll go on that side, I think. Then there we go, that'll push and it'll pull. And it won't flop about. This end of it, I'll just bend that, and as I say, it'll screw into there. And there will be our thing, and there will be that. So, let me make another template. Well, actually, I can just mark on the alloy. I'm going to make this out of 1/4 inch, I think. To make, what is it? I've got 3/16 from. I'll see what I've got. If I've got a little piece of 1/4 inch that size, so I don't have to cut out of a big sheet, I might do it in 1/4 inch. Then we'll make that piece to go there. You see, that will be just, I can make that here, so it'll be clear of the rocker cover. And then bolt it to that, and while it's bolted to that and bolted to the head, we can bronze it on. Alright, so let me go and cut a piece of alloy. Right, well, I decided to go 1/4 inch because I had a sort of oddment sticking out from one end of a sheet that was big enough. So that's going to go on there like that. I put a hole in the middle, look, to make it look all snazzy. Going to make a plate for the top of here for that to bolt onto, and then that is going to go there. And that is big enough to go up. Alright, so let me go and well, let me make a bit of cardboard up to do that steel piece, drill it, bolt it to that, and as I say, we'll bolt this to the head to hold it while we bronze it, and then we can see about doing that. Right, so there's the plate. I've put some nuts on the back so I don't have to prat around trying to get nuts up in there. So what we'll do is we'll just screw that onto there. While I'm screwing this, look at that tubing, that 4130 tubing. I say while I'm screwing this, look, it won't go in. It's not black. I mean, it's got a slight coating on it from whatever, but I really don't know what that black tubing that I bought to do the mudguard stays with is now. I'm completely confused. So that's going to go on there. That's going to go in there. That bolt on. Well, fingers and thumbs. It's going to go in there, so I'll bolt this up tight, see, and that will hold that there while I do that. Just had a thought, you know, that's probably going to be a bugger to drill to put the rod in, so anyway, we'll see. Let me bolt this on here. Right, so there's that bronzed on there. Now all I've got to do is make my little thing. God, that lines up perfectly, do you know that? You'd think I planned it like that, wouldn't you? Right, let's see what I can do about drilling a hole in that to put a nut in. Actually, that wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be. So I've drilled a hole in it. I've just put a a 1/4 inch bolt in at the moment. I thinned the nut down. See, that goes on there, and then that's about how long we want it. So the only thing I'm noticing is I might be further away from the back of here than hang on, let's see if I can get this to go up into. This is a good springy catch on this. There we go. Hang on a second. Alright, I've actually threaded the bit of rod. And what I've done as well is I've put a lock nut on, because I was thinking this might work its way loose. So that's on there. It's hard to get in without getting in your way. Yeah. It does touch there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this off here. I'll mark it off so I've got an edge, because I think I want to weld this in situ, because everything's not perfectly square. Couldn't expect it to be really. But if I cut that so I can see this tube and this edge, I can weld that up there, and then we'll just put a little turn on the end of this, and having the lock nut as well means I can put a little bit of adjustment in that. So let me cut the end off here and see about getting that welded on. Okay, welded it on, smoothed it out a little bit. Right, so now I'm just going to mark this here so I can put a bend in so that it's not in the way, and I've got a bit of adjustment at the top here, and I think that works fine. I did have a moment's thought that carb's rubber mounted here, is that going to wobble about, but actually this rubber mount, and with this one, it's, you know, carb isn't going to move. And if it's a problem, then we'll think of something else later on. But right now, I can reach under the tank and do that. So the tank will come to about here. So I only need to have that bent. So I'm going to mark it so I know which direction. So let me do that. All right. Put a little bend in. And I took that nut thing off the top. Now, I have to take the plate off, put it on. The idea was you screwed that in, but because I made this short, it bumps against the carb. Yeah, you can see that. So I'm going to have to put this in with the plate off. So that goes on there like that. Then, where I put it? Then on goes the thinned down lock nut. Then that screws on. See, this is what I was thinking I could do with the plate on. I could just put that up through there. Come on, get in there. Threads again, folks. Put that in there. Come on now. It's just being a bit awkward. Oh Lord. Tell you, whenever you're watching, things go awry. Oh, come on. Going at an angle. Now, is this embarrassing or what? There it goes. Right, so that goes on there like that. Goes in there. And don't worry, things like lock washers will be put on when we finally put it all together. I know some of you people worry about things like that. Right, so that's on like that, and when that's tightened up, everything will be fine. Right, then, when the 7/16, tighten up this little lock nut. I think that works fine. I really do think that works fine. All right. Yeah, that's not too shabby at all. Okay, so that's as much as I can do for this week. The sprocket is slightly delayed. They've got a lot of work on apparently, but I'll show you what we're going to do, because next week we'll do the chain guard and the chain tensioner. So hold on a second. Right, so I found an old 520 sprocket. What I've done is cut it in two. That is now 6 inches from the centre of the spindle, which is what a 60-tooth sprocket like I'm getting is. So we're going to put both of them on like that with a clamp, and then that way I've got the proper line from here to the sprocket. All right. One of those strange coincidences of life. This centre circle is 5.8 inches, which is exactly what that is. So if that had been a 60-tooth sprocket, I could have just put it on and it would have worked. But anyway, that's how we're going to do it. I used that. This is a really handy piece of, I think it's for sliding doors. It's just the right size to go on a 520 sprocket. So we'll be able to see where the chain guard and everything goes, so we won't get stopped for too much work. And then there's one or two minor little things to do. We'll get them done, and that's the frame finished. So at the end of next week, we'll strip this, I'll start painting it, and we'll build the engine the week after. Alright, so that's it for this week. Until next week, stay safe and enjoy yourselves.